Now, I've been using Divi for a very, very long time, and I've never imagined I could create something like this. This is something that I would create in Bricks Builder or even Elementor, but this can now be done in Divi 5. And this is very exciting because I was able to achieve this using basic elements which were released quite recently called nested rows and grouped modules. So let me show you step by step how to create this. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and delete this and then start from scratch and show you how I was able to create this. All right, so the first thing you want to do is to create a group. So I'm going to come over here and choose group. Next, in that group, we need to add an image. So I'm going to go ahead and search for my image module and then add it. Okay, great. So the next step now is to add our text module. So this is going to be our text module for our heading. So I'm going to go ahead and select that, and I'm also going to duplicate that. Okay. Now don't worry, I am going to simplify this very, very soon. So now the top one needs to be a heading. So I'm just going to go ahead and just copy some lorem text from here, and I'm going to paste it in the top one, which is that one. Okay, great. So here we have two options. So if you're someone that has purchased SiteKrafter Pro, which is the framework for Divi 5, then I'm going to do the shortcuts, but you can also achieve this by basically highlighting that and then changing this to, let's say, heading 2 or something along those lines. But if you're using, let's say, you're using SiteKrafter, you can just come over here to the Advanced tab and use the classes. So here we're able to use our classes, which are even much, much better because they're all responsive. So as the screen gets smaller, everything is going to be responsive. So for example, here I can say text, and let's go for text medium. And then I'm going to say font 800. Okay, now do you see that there's more control here? There's less clicking. If I were to go in and let's say I wanted to do the same, I'm just going to copy a bunch of text from here like that. If I were to do the same, I would need to do quite a few steps in terms of making sure my text here is formatted properly. So for example, with this text here, I would need to come to design, and then I'll go into text, and then I would now need to set my size. And for the size, it has to be responsive, which means it needs some clamp sizes and so on. But this way, it's already done. Everything is all set for me, which is pretty cool. All right. So now that I have this done, the next step now is, while I'm highlighting now, this is very, very important. Now notice that I'm not clicking outside of the group here. I'm actually clicking on this text module, and when I highlight over here, I can see a plus button. I'm going to click in here, and this is where I'm going to add a row like that. And this row is going to have 2 columns. Now in that first column, we're going to add a button. Okay, similar to what we have there in the design. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. Now, of course, this button here is quite big, so we need to go in and fix it. So I'm going to click on it, and then I'm going to come over here to my button, activate button styles. So the first thing I need to do is to go into the button text, because this is what we need to change. So right now it's 20 pixels. So I'm going to go with, let's try 2 rem. Let's see what it looks like. Okay, let's try 1. Okay, so we are now going to go 1.4 until we get the size that we want. So I think finally we're going to go with 1.6. Now I can still see that we still have a problem here because we have some padding that we need to address. So what we're going to do is we're going to come over here to spacing. So for the padding, I'm going to add 0 and 0. Okay, so now my button is a bit too small, so let's try 10. Okay, that's a bit too much, so definitely we're going to go with 4. Okay, so we're going to go with 4 pixels, and this is going to be 4 pixels on both sides. Okay, so far so good. We have our design now coming together. Over here now this is a bit tricky because we need to make sure that we choose the other column. So we have two columns here. So if I come in here, you can see we have two columns right here. All right, so the second column here has nothing. So the only way we can get to it is by coming over here to our layers. So normally it's like that, but if you click that, then it's going to show us a drop down of how things are looking. So I'm going to select this column here like that. So with that selected, I'm going to add my plus button here, and we're going to add some icons. So I'm going to search for icon, and now we're going to choose, a few icons that we can go with. And let's say for this, we're going to go with this log. But what I'm going to do to make things easier for me is just to go in here and, okay, the icon can stay, the color, that's fine. But for the size, I'm going to now choose a size that works for me. So we're going to start off with 2, and then we're going to go to 4. So I'm going to be playing around with these sizes until I get the size that I want. Okay, so that one is fine. So I'm going to duplicate this twice, and then I'm going to go into the second one. And for the second one here, what we're going to choose, let's go with maybe this one here. And then for the third one, what could we go with? Let's go with this download one. Okay, so now we have our 3 icons. So what we need to do is to make sure we select that column one more time. So with that column selected, okay, we are going now to come over here, CSS ID and classes, and I'm going to add flexbox. Okay, so that's just going to make sure that everything is now in a straight line. And by the way, if you are not using the Divi framework called SiteKrafter, then you have to go in and add the CSS for flexbox. Okay, you have to go and add it manually in order for you to achieve this. But this was a quick way of achieving this. Okay, so over here now on my row settings, I'm going to click here on the rows. So what I'm going to do quickly is to come over here into the design, sizing, and I'm going to make sure I activate use custom gutter width, and then I'm just going to reduce that to 2. So that's looking much better. Okay, right, so we still have quite a bit of work to do here, because as I can see this, we still need to add padding around this. So we're going to click here on the main group. Okay, we're on the main group. So what we're going to do now with this group is a few things. You can either come over here and add your color like that, or if you want a bit more control, if you're using the SiteKrafter framework, you can just come over here, CSS ID and classes, and I'm going to say PAD for padding, and I'm going to go with small. Okay, so with that now, I know I can't see my color, so I'm going to say BG dash gray. So with this here, I can pretty much control my colors much better. So I'm going to try gray 800 and see what it looks like. Yeah, I think it works, but we want to go really dark. So let's go gray 900. Okay. All right, great. So I know we still have our text in here. So I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to come over here to design text, and then I can change the color over here just like that, or I can add it using CSS. So with CSS, I can just come over here, CSS ID and classes, and then I'm just going to say text dash white. Now there are many colors that I can apply using CSS over here. That is why I prefer using the CSS, and it's much easier to go ahead and change this across the whole website. All right, so now I've got my paragraph text selected. Again, I'm going to click on advanced, CSS ID and classes, and then I'm going to say text white. So this is the class for it. Okay, so there's no need to add my code here for the text. I think this should work fine. Okay, so with that now, I'm going to select my image here and then upload my image from my media library. I'm going to select that, and then I'm going to click on upload. All right, so you can see here my design is taking shape. In fact, if you are not a fan of the rounded corners, you can just leave it like this. But we just need to do a few more minor adjustments to this to just make it look the way we want. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to choose this row. So in fact, I need to switch this on. Now, X-ray, makes you sort of like visualize where things are. So I really like X-ray for that reason. So with X-ray selected now, I can see what needs to be moved. But for now, if this is the design I want to go with, I can just leave that. But you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to duplicate this, and then I'm going to do a different style while we are at it. Okay, so with this style now, I'm going to click here on my group settings. So you notice that I've clicked on the group settings. This is where we're going to go in and add our border. So for my border, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to start with 30 and see what that looks like. Okay, so that's not too bad. Let's go with 40. Okay, that's a bit extreme, but that's the look that I'm going for. Now let's go to the image. So for the image, I know for a fact that if I come over here to my border, I might need to go with 30 because the radius has to be slightly smaller. All right, so let's remove our X-ray and take a look. And that looks really, really close to what I'm looking for, which is fantastic. All right, so because we have these curves or the radius borders, what we may want to do here is to just fix a few things. So let's bring back our X-ray, and I want to select this layout here. So I've got my image and then I've got my row here. Okay, so what I want to do is to just add a bit of, padding on the left and the right there. Okay, so that's pretty much what I'm trying to achieve. But what I can see here is I may have missed something here in my design. Okay, so my rows here are selected. So let's add it in here. Okay, we're going to come over here to design, spacing, and we're going to add padding left and right. So we're going to go with 2 rem, for example. So let's try and add it both sides. Okay, that's a bit too much. We're going to add 1 rem. All right, so that seems to work. We're going to do the same over here. Design. And we're going to go with spacing. So just like what we did, it's going to be 1 rem. And we're going to apply this to the left and the right, like that. So if you compare these two, you can see that the size here is a bit, slightly bigger. So you just want to make these icons slightly smaller to match what we have here. But apart from that, the design is complete, and this is how you design your websites using cards. If you haven't signed up to Divi University yet, go ahead and sign up for Divi University. This is a community for Divi designers. It's absolutely free. Go ahead and hang out with fellow Divi designers. Until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the next one. Take care.